Hi everybody, my name's Bob Saunders and I'd like to talk to you today about Jesus Christ. And you'll notice that there's two words, Jesus and Christ. Two words, because it's important. Now, let me just say before I start that I don't want to upset anybody that's a Christian, because I too am basically Christian, and we're all on the same side, I hope. So if I say anything that about the life and times of Jesus that's not actually written in the Bible, please don't get offended. Please don't get angry, because I'm not here to upset you. I'm not here to offend you. I'm here to help as best I can and help other people that are searching for answers, okay, who may or may not be Christians themselves. Okay, so just bear with me, please. Now, we need to start off by saying that, as I'm always saying in these videos, we are two people in one. We've got our physical body and we've got this Spirit of God attached to us that we call our higher self, and then we have all our personality and all the rest of it. And that Spirit of God, this higher self, animates the body, makes it function. When that disassociates itself from our body, then we die. Okay, it's this Spirit of God that's the important bit, really. Our physical body is just here to help us relate to planet Earth. Okay, now I also want to say that before anything existed, before the universe existed, there was, however, one fundamental law called the law of mutual attraction. Without that law, there would be no universe. You wouldn't exist and I wouldn't exist. Nothing would exist. It's that law of law of mutual attraction that draws things together, that makes it all. The law of mutual attraction has, over eons of time, gathered bits of dust and stuff together and formed the planets and so on that we see around us. It's actually more complicated than that, but keep it simple. And also draws space together. And more importantly, from our point of view, it draws positivity together and draws negativity together. So the positive things come together and make more and more and more positiveness, and the negative stuff does the same. It's all done according to this law. And that has created what we call God and the devil over eons of time. Let's forget about the devil. Let's concentrate on the God Spirit. So you need to understand that there has been for a long time this positive force that's been gradually getting more and more positive over as it draws more and more good stuff to it. And that's important, okay, because we call that God. Now, what else have I've got some notes, so please just... Right, now, when the planet Earth was first made, as I've mentioned before, animals were put down here in the hopes of themselves raising spiritual energy to replace the energy that was used to create all this in the first place. But that didn't work out too well. So human beings were put down here. Now, all things, whether it's a tiny stone or a human being, blades of grass, insects, we're all basically the same in that we've got something physical. A stone, you see a stone, you see a blade of grass, you see an insect, a grasshopper or whatever, or an animal or a human being, you see the physical form, but it's also got that spiritual element behind it. And when primitive man was put down here, he had that Spirit of God, which we call our higher self, associated with him, but he didn't develop it very much, and so the negative forces started to get an upper hand. So some 2,000 years ago, a decision was made to try and introduce somebody down here that had that Spirit of God, that higher self very much developed, not more developed because we're all basically the same, but the access to it more open, so that this person could demonstrate by his life and the way that he did things, that this positive force exists to help wake us all up a little bit. Okay, so Jesus was born. What happened was they asked for a volunteer. Somebody came forward. He came down through the heavenly spheres, as did we all, and he was born. Okay, now whether he was born a virgin birth and whether he was born in like we all are is not important. It's the fact that Jesus was born that's important. He actually lived down here a couple of thousand years ago. He had in association with him this higher self and all his personality and so on, as do we all, but his access to that higher self was much more open, and he had full access to the spiritual powers that are contained within that higher self. Now, the only thing I will say that will differ slightly from one of the things I'm going to say that will differ slightly from what's in the Bible, it says in the Bible that he was a carpenter, the son of a carpenter. I've been told that that's not quite true, because had he been born a working class person, he would have been cutting up bits of wood from dawn till dusk, and at the end of each evening falling into bed exhausted, and he wouldn't have had time and energy to go around teaching. And he was here to teach spirituality and to show us that he had and that we've got this Spirit of God attached to us. Now, so he was born into a fairly wealthy family, which gave him the time to do whatever he wanted to do. Okay? So he went round and he listened to rabbis talking and doing their things as a young man. And then we get to that point in the Bible where he disappears. Now, apparently, he went off to the Himalayas, to Tibet, and he studied in at least one monastery there, because apparently there's an actual record that dates from that time where his name's written in the registry. It's not quite written as the Jesus that we know, but apparently it's there. And apparently he studied Buddhism and so on and so on. And he went round teaching Buddhism in the Himalayas for a while. And he finally came back to the Middle East, and the Bible picks up the story there. Okay, what actually happened to him at the end, whether he was crucified or whether something else happened, is not important. What is important is that Jesus lived, and that he had what we call the Christ Spirit attached to him, associated with him, which he called his Father, because this Christ Spirit, this higher self, is part of God. It's actually total God. God doesn't divide. God can create multiples of itself. It's a complicated subject, but Jesus recognized that he had the God Spirit within him, which he called his Father, and he tried to say to us, our Father is also in heaven. We are also attached to this God thing. We have the higher self attached to us, associated with us, and we have this association with God. Okay? And really, that's the thing I wanted to say. What Jesus was trying to say to us is that if we can live in peace and in love together, which we should do because we have this positive force that we call the higher self, which is God itself associated with us, we can live in peace and in love, and we can reduce the negative forces and make life so much better for all of us. Okay? And this is what Jesus' message was. He came down here with a physical body that we know as Jesus, and this Christ spirit, which we know of today as a higher self, and he went about teaching that you can access this higher self, and which you can do through meditation and so on. It's quite simple. Meditation, prayer, and helping your fellow man will open that path to your higher self, and you can start to do some of the things that Jesus did. Now, I'm not saying that you can ever be quite like Jesus, and there's no point. You're not here to do what Jesus did. You're here to help your fellow man, and you'll also help yourself by the same process as you help others, so you help yourself. That's once again this law of mutual attraction. As you help others, you get help. And this is what Jesus was trying to tell us, that we all have this God spirit attached to us. Because you remember, he said something like, the things that I do, you will be able to do, and more. Okay? And he also said, and this is very important, the greatest is love. If you can love your fellow man as yourself, then that's what we're here for, to spread love, to spread peace, to spread happiness, to spread joy, to spread harmony, and all pull together to reduce the powers of evil and make the powers of goodness come up and up and up. Okay, that's what I wanted to say. And that was what Jesus was trying to tell us, I believe. Jesus and the Christ Spirit, which we all have within us. Okay, thank you for listening to me. It probably was all a bit jumbled, but I hope that it made some sense to you. I'll speak to you again another day. Bye.